get started. Yeah, so today, all about building scalable portfolio support. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mike Pruce. I am the founder of Visible. And today I'm joined by Erica, and Erica's the head of platform at Left Lane Capital. She's also the board member of the VC platform group, which some of you might be familiar with that are on this call. Also a venture partner at NextGen Partners. And before VC, I think, was on the other side and working in various marketing roles and different kind of athlete roles at startups. And then Jess, she's the head of platform at K50 Ventures. Previously, she was in venture development for Company Ventures that was out of Grand Central Tech in New York. And same, I think Jess had some experience with startups. I'll let you guys both introduce yourselves. Maybe like, how did you get into venture platform? And let me know if I missed anything in my intro. Maybe Erica, go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for the introduction. And I think, that is my background, so I don't have much more to add.
Awesome.
But I got into VC around 3 years ago. I used to lead marketing for Burrow, Otherlands, and consumer companies. And before that, software and fintech companies like Oracle and Rise. I actually got into VC a very weird way. I started an events company on the side that brought together partners of VC firms and founders and like cool Soho lofts and stuff like that, and would just raise sponsorship money and pocket the sponsorship money as like a side gig. Ended up meeting a ton of VC partners and ended up getting hired from them to basically do marketing in-house, advise our portfolio companies in marketing, and that kind of turned into more of a platform operational role, where now it's more operations, tech stack for our investment team, for our operations team, and building out a further platform team to actually plug into our venture companies. With that, I'll hand it off to Jess, who I've known for a while.
Thanks, Mike, for having me. I also have a pretty unconventional path into venture. I actually started my career as a teacher. So for 2 years, I taught first grade and fifth grade, and I always wanted to be in education. I quickly learned it wasn't for me, and I transitioned over to community. So I was a community manager at a nonprofit called One Table for a year. And at the time, it was before community was a buzzword like it is now. And people kind of looked at me like I had 3 heads when I said I was a community manager. But from there, I went to Grand Central Tech as a community manager, which is a year-long accelerator program for pre-seed companies, where all the companies are co-located in the same space for 1 year rent-free. So I was there for 4 different classes, and I got to witness these companies growing throughout the course of the year, and really I was able to see the value of these peer-to-peer founder networks and really got bought into community as it relates to venture. While I was there, the accelerator raised a venture fund called Company Ventures. So that's really where I learned a lot about the venture world, and my role really transitioned to venture development. And looking back, really my whole time there was a platform role. It was really before platform was as popular as it is today. And that's what led me over to K50, which I joined last year. So I've been there for almost 2 years.
Very awesome. What are the similarities between being a kindergarten teacher and a platform manager? Are there any?
Yes, I like to say that my job now is kind of like being a teacher for adults. And it's what I loved about teaching and kind of helping others is really what the whole platform role is. At least how I
awesome. Very cool. So Erica, maybe just to start, we'd love, just for some quick context setting, we'd love to hear just a little bit about Left Lane, how many portfolio companies you're supporting, and then just same thing for you as well.
Yeah, I'll do the quick Left Lane pitch. So Left Lane is like the new cool VC kid on the block. We spun out of Insight Partners 3 years ago. We've raised $2 billion in around 3 years, which is pretty good. We only invest in consumer and internet tech, anywhere from Series A to D. I'd say we're very international at this point, actually. More than 40% of our companies are not in North America. And that's a little bit on Left Lane. We have an office in London. We have an office in New York. We're around 30 people now, and we have probably 52 portfolio companies. That's my estimation.
Yeah.
Redeploying capital, like there's a new one every week.
Awesome.
And
Just what about K50?
At K50, we're a pre-seed fund, and we back mission-driven founders. our thesis is that we're building a better future for the 99%. So we're really true first check investors, and we write an average check $500K to $1 million. And our companies are in the US and Latin America, and they all focus on improving access, affordability, and well-being. And our focus areas are health, finance, and work. We have quite a large portfolio. We have 170 companies, currently manage 62 million AUM, and we're deploying from our third fund. And we've been investing since 2016.
Awesome. So we're going to get started here in just a second. Thanks for those intros. So Bella on our team, she's standing by. If you guys have questions, feel free to leave them in chat, Zoom chat, or the Q&A function, and we'll get to those either during the slide or towards the end. We're going to record this, so this will be sent out to everyone with a recap, usually within a day or two of the webinar. And yeah, so today, really all we're breaking down is how to scale the portfolio support function and what we're calling the platform role. So we're going to break that down, talk about how onboarding new companies and what works well there, ongoing support for those companies, how to build a scalable support machine as your portfolio grows, as we just heard. Over 220 combined companies between Jess and Erica. How do you manage the requests coming in from founders, from intros for potential investors to hiring, bridging the gap between the investment team and the platform and ops team, and then just kind of advice and concluding thoughts, and we'll be on our way. So, and I'll do my best to moderate. Usually I only have one guest. I have two, which is super exciting. So I'll do my best to moderate, and we'll see how this goes. But this comes from Lyra Hippo. This is the VC platform roles and function. And I think some of our audience today might be first-time fund managers who don't have a platform function, or maybe just getting started. And so maybe just to start, Jess, I'll let you go first here. Is what is a VC platform? And I'm sure there's so many different ways, like maybe succinctly, you kind of said it already, but what is a VC platform? And we'll get going from there.
Mm-hmm. I think this chart definitely does a good job of breaking it down, and it's so dependent on the fund, but really it's overall, generally, it's the post-investment support of the fund. So it could be anything from helping portfolio companies with talent, to back office support, to community and network, different events. And at K50, our platform is focusing primarily on community and marketing. I think it's really important, at least when you're starting, to be super focused. I think the downfall of platform people is trying to be doing too much, and you do everything okay, rather than focusing on one or two things really well. And so for us, as I said, we have 170 portfolio companies. And so we looked at it as power in numbers and what's our value add, what makes us unique. And it is having all these portfolio companies, all these founders, which is why we lean so heavily into community. So really my goal is to connect our founders and help them lean on the collective intelligence of the group to help each other learn, make the founder journey less lonely, and also provide them with tools and resources to help them grow and scale, and really help them get to Series A. And so helping them with everything from partnerships and resources and everything, regardless of what type of company you're building, all founders deal with similar challenges when they're building a company from their first check. And so really, how can we support them in that way?
Yeah, that's awesome. Erica, it sounds like you guys are a little bit later stage, right? You're Series A later, more investing past the kind of initial check size. So how does that differ for you guys? K50's first check, as we heard, you guys a little bit later stage. What is your approach to platform? What do you guys focus on? Has that evolved over time as well?
Yeah, and I can kind of speak from an earlier stage VC background. Before being at Left Lane, I was at Alpaca VC, which is exactly kind of where it just sits in AUM and check size. And Left Lane, like you said, is more growth equity going to Series D, and it does differ quite a bit. I would say, what is VC platform? Like Jess said, this does a great job at rolling everything into one, but I really think it's a connective tissue between all of these buckets. And as an earlier stage VC firm, I think you have to think, where can I provide value? What is my edge? What is my differentiation as a VC firm? A lot of this today is now table stakes. Everyone, has a preferred partner network. Everyone has an advisor network. Everyone has a lot of these things. So it's what can I be uniquely good at? And that's why a lot of these pop-up VC firms that are just specialized in one thing are doing so well and winning deals, is because they have such a strong value proposition in just one of these areas. Or maybe they're super good at providing in like influencers or brand ambassadors for your company, or maybe they're super good at providing talent like True Ventures, or like Signal Fire. They have a whole data analyst team in-house to tell you what you're doing wrong and who your super users are. And so I think what platform is today is what can you do best, and what can you really provide out there that is better than all the other VC firms. If you're a larger stage VC firm like Left Lane, it's okay, we need to be good at everything because we are people's lead investors. We're writing $100 million checks. And so for me, I think platform is how can I build a team that actually covers everything correctly. So right now we just hired a head of talent to do talent. We're hiring a marketing person in-house. We're going to hire a product person in-house. So actually creating a team, and that's something Insight Partners does really well, which is, the fund we spun out of. Their platform and operations team is now bigger than their investment team, which is pretty incredible. I don't know if we'll ever get to that point, but it's just something to think about, right? And that kind of answers the third question on here, which is how has your approach, support evolved over time? And I think one other thing to mention is how platform is seen as it's only post-investment. So we make an investment, the investment team makes an investment, passes it on to the platform team, and we help accelerate their company into hypergrowth and try to plug holes as fast as we can. But if you want to take your platform to the next level, it's, well, how are you helping the operation the investment team source better? How are you helping them do due diligence better? How are you helping them win the deal better? And that's what platforms should ultimately do, is help win deals and be that value add. So I would say platform isn't just post-investment, it's actually throughout the whole VC value chain of fundraising, sourcing, due diligence, winning, post-investment, all the way to exit. And if you start seeing platform in that more holistic approach, you can start actually convincing investment teams to start investing more in the platform side and building out a team. Yeah,
awesome. We're going to get back to that in a second too, because I think we're talking about bridging the gap towards the end. Maybe just before we move on to the next slide, you mentioned for specifically, you guys are really focused on one or two kind of core things. One of them being community. I think that's super fascinating. You mentioned about the founder journey. What have you seen work well, cultivating the community of your 150 portfolio founders, and maybe what are some lessons learned, maybe things that didn't work well of trying to build a strong community within K50, or maybe even in previous roles, when you're at Grand Central Tech?
Right. I would say the way I look at it is, how can I enable and create opportunities for founders to have one or two really deep relationships with other founders in the network who they could text and vent with and ask questions to, because really no one gets it like other founders. And so how can we allow them to meet each other? And so, for example, we'll do once a quarter, we do one-on-one founder matching, where we'll have founders sign up, and then I'll look at the list and I'll curate, I think these founders would be really great together. Or if I'm catching up with a founder and they're talking about a problem they're dealing with, I'll think about another founder that had a similar challenge and I'll connect them to talk to each other. I like to say building out this platform in COVID was beneficial to me, because people were used to getting vulnerable and meeting behind a computer screen, whereas in the past people were more likely to form those relationships in person. Now we see a lot of those relationships. I formed so many relationships, Erica and I have never met in person, but I can email her with questions and go to her. And so trying to connect our founders in that way. We also do in-person events. And I really do think meeting in person, there's nothing more valuable than that. And so also creating opportunities for them to meet people locally is super important as well.
Okay. Awesome.
I think it's the unscalable stuff to start of hand in hand and hand picking who you want to connect people with.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned was platform playing a role in the kind of post-check exercise of onboarding and getting new companies starting to scale after the check's been written. I would love to just kind of run down some of these questions here of like, how are you guys introduced to new companies? Is it a thoughtful handover? What have you learned through that handover, process of, hey, the company's gone through diligence for, a couple of weeks or months now, and now, boom, we got some new people. And like, how do you get context on the company itself? Is that coming through from someone on the investment team? Is that you reading deal docs? Is that you doing your own research? But yeah, like I'd love to just kind of first start about like what have you learned and how are you handling that the initial handover from a portfolio company? I guess Erica, we'll start with you.
Okay. So it differs for every single firm on what your process is, but I'll speak to Leftlane's process. So I'm involved in our pipeline as well as our IC. So I see everything that's in pipeline. I hear everything that's in pipeline when it goes into IC. I hear everything in IC. Our team makes internal memos that can range from like 50 to 100 pages long on, everything from the risks of investing in the company to all of the cohorts, all the data analysis, to the surveys we've done. So it's a pretty comprehensive memo where I can catch myself on the company at any time and know everything about them, right? When we officially invest in a company, a team-wide email goes out saying, hey team, we've invested in this company, we put this check size in at this ownership, and this is what the company is. I'm automatically passed off from the deal lead saying, hey, Erica, can you onboard this company? And so I meet then with the CEO and their C-suite. I make sure the C-suite is also involved because we have a network that includes CMOs, CTOs, CPOs, CFOs, COOs, the list goes on, in order to have their whole team get to lean on the rest of our portfolio's executives as well. And I have a whole onboarding deck where basically I'll say, hey, here are Leftlane's resources. This is our ecosystem. This is our platform. This is our network. And then it's really an open conversation of what are your needs, your highest priority needs in the next 3 months, 6 months, and year, right? And when you map that out together, you can then immediately get to work on fulfilling their needs and helping them accelerate forward. But that's our process internally. I think it's different for every company.
Yeah, Jess, I'm curious to hear if that's similar or different for you guys.
Yeah, ours is similar with the fact that I too am involved in all the conversations leading up to the deal, which I think is unique. I think often platform people don't have visibility into deal flow, don't go to the partner calls, don't get to sit in on those meetings, which I'm able to do, which is great because I'm hearing the investors talk about the company. We also have memos that I have access to, so I'm able to catch up on the companies. And so similarly, I get alerted when we make the investment, and then I have an onboarding email that I send in addition to an onboarding document. And then I also will set up a one-on-one call to talk to the founders. Different than Erica because most of they don't have a CVC just yet, and often it's just the founders on the team. And so what's great is they often look to us as an extension of their team and really need our resources in terms of the community and like the partnership stuff that's, as Erica was saying, has become table stakes often because we're the first check. They haven't seen that because they don't have any other investors yet, or they haven't been onboarded yet. And so we'll get on the onboarding call. I'll walk them through our whole resource hub, which I've built on Airtable. So everything from, we have a founder directory and a portfolio directory because we lean so heavily into community. This allows them to have visibility into who the other founders are. Because it's all on Airtable, they can also filter it. So if they're in Bogota, Colombia, and they want to see, okay, who are all the other founders? I want to reach out to them and get coffee. They're able to do that. And then I will walk them through our event directory, which has upcoming events, all of our past events as well. We've had over 40 events since I've started, and the ones that have been recorded, they have access to all of those and they can send it with their teams. So I'll just walk them through all of that. I then also try to get them excited about it. After the call, I'll follow up with, based off what you told me you're focusing on. So for example, I had an onboarding call last week and a company was really focused on media. So I send them all of our past events that we've done as related to media training and press releases. And then I connected them to a contact who they could talk to, who could give them expert advice. And so showing them and getting them excited about our platform within the first couple of weeks, I have found is super important, so they don't forget about us because they're so busy, they have so much going on. And yeah, we have this great resource hub, but we want to make sure that they're using it so they remember it.
Yeah, that was one of my questions I was going to ask, and it was around intentionality. Like, how intentional do you need to be pulling the founders into like your networking community? And hey, we have all this stuff, but I think someone actually just wrote in too, which probably says a little bit better. This person, anonymous attendee, says, what are the main 1 to 2 calls to action you want new founders, portfolio companies to do like after the onboarding call? Are there like, what are you looking for? And like 1 to 2 call actions? Because you're like, hey, here are all the things we can offer. What are you guys trying to get like from those founders, and to make sure they get kind of hooked into the platform and resources you guys offer?
I think for us,
start with, yeah, go ahead, Erica. Sorry.
Is obviously getting them to join the platform, and creating a profile, logging in, meeting other folks. I think the second is discussing their fundraising announcement, because that's usually pretty evident in the next month. It usually happens. And we help them a lot with getting PR for their fundraising announcement, how it's announced, etc. So those are probably the biggest 2. And then the third, if I were to delete the obvious number 1, which is to just join the platform, would be to, have calls with one of our partners, Tegas, which allows them to basically call up executives at competing firms or companies and question and get market intelligence and market data. And that's just something we encourage all of our portfolio companies to do pretty early on.
Cool. Just anything to add there?
I would say for us, and something I didn't mention, is that we do have a Slack channel. So getting them signed up for that. And that's a way we have private channels with each company, with the K50 team and the founders, so they have direct access to us, as well as access to other founders. So getting them signed up to there. And then I would say too, getting them excited about an upcoming relevant event. So they sign up, they come, and they can experience how valuable it could be.
Yeah. Awesome. What about another person wrote in, what are the pros and cons of using no code tools for managing your community? We mentioned Airtable and Slack, versus maybe something more custom built or very purposely built for community. Like, do you guys have any experience on either side of that?
I can speak to that.
Sure.
I have a theory: just because you build it does not mean they will come. And especially with founders, I found that you want to make it as easy as possible. Erica mentioned that they expand this beyond the founders, which I think is amazing. And that's somewhere that we want to grow to. But right now I kind of have the founders as the gatekeeper, especially because when we're onboarding them, it's typically just the founders. And so we don't have that information. But I built it on Airtable because that's our single source of truth. I would say too, as you're picking a no-code tool, to just pick one and build off of that. It's so hard to get partners onto any tool. And so pick one, at least if you're a small team like us, we're 7 people total. I'm a team of 1. And so I built it all on Airtable as a way I can link all of the founders and the companies. And so the event directory that we showcase the founders, I'm able to then track what companies are RSVPing, what founders are RSVPing. And then I could see that. It's how I'm collecting data, in addition to that's what our resource hub is built on. I love Airtable. I'm happy to walk anyone through who's interested to see how we've built it. But I think that I built the whole thing with no budget. Do you think that as a starting point, that's great? Ultimately, I think it would be awesome if we could have a portal that founders log into and expand it to their team. We're not there yet, but Erica can speak to that, because it sounds like they have something like that that's custom built.
Yeah, I can speak to that for sure, but I will second that. I love Airtable. And I think a good platform can actually be built on Airtable and nothing else. However, that would not make our LPs happy. So here we are building an in-house platform. So yeah, we built it in-house. It's just basically you can log in, there's a members directory, there's different private groups. It's kind of like Facebook, where there's a live feed. There's events, there's jobs, there's a proprietary library of content, etc. We do not use Slack. We do not use any of that in order to connect our portfolio together, mainly because we have such a widespread portfolio, completely all over the world, international, at all varying levels. And what I found previously is it's hard, and Jessica can speak to this probably. Maybe they have the most engaged Slack ever, but even at my last firm, we had a Slack, and it was really hard because, you know, these early stage founders will ask a shit ton of questions, excuse my French, but like the later stage founders are not going to help the earlier stage founders on Slack. They're not on Slack. They're dealing with an IPO. They're dealing with a huge layoff. They're dealing with massive problems. And so a lot of time there's no one really to serve them. And so the community kind of dies over time. And that's why I actually like more static platforms where it's more of a forum, because it emails you. It's kind of like the VC platform network, actually. It emails you when someone posts a question, and if you seem deep fit, you answer that question. And it's more offline than Slack, which is built upon immediacy and just like go, go, go. I think it's really good though to have a Slack, and I do think it's good, or a WhatsApp group, if even that's applicable. I tried to build a WhatsApp group, and honestly, our founders are just so everywhere that it doesn't make sense for us. But I think the internal portal really makes sense for us because it houses literally all of our content, all of our network advisors from all over the world. And it's kind of like a Facebook. You log on when you want to log on, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you get notifications.
Allison, we got two relevant, you guys are spurring a lot of questions, which is great. Allison wrote in, and maybe this is just, you guys are managing a Slack community actively. So how do you keep it engaging? Are you posting articles? Are you posting questions? Like, how do you keep things engaging and that where that atrophy doesn't set in of like people aren't using it and it slowly dies?
Mm-hmm. So when I launched the Slack, the goal was not for it to be one of those Slacks that you're constantly getting notifications. I'm in all those Slacks and I start ignoring them. And so it's really a way for folks to be able to ask questions and get answers from other founders. And so we intentionally didn't open it up to the rest of the community so that we have so many founders. Even if you don't know the person who's answering your question, you know that they're a K50 founder. And so hopefully you'll trust them. So we don't, like, I just found that it became noise by like posting articles and asking questions. Like no one, at least the founders, they don't really care. It's not the right platform. And so it's really more for, does anyone have a great, I'm looking to do a rebrand, any awesome firms that you would recommend? Mm-hmm. What I'll try to do to curate it is if I know, oh, these 5 companies recently did a rebrand in the last year, I'll tag them because again, I know that they're not constantly checking it. Everyone's super busy. I do think ultimately we would move off of Slack. I think everyone, I think when we launched this over a year and a half ago, it definitely was more active than it is now. And I think people just are inundated with Slack. And we also have a WhatsApp group specifically for our LATAM founders because we also found they live on WhatsApp, our US founders don't. And so we also tried to experiment with different types, and we're still I would say like if you do launch a Slack, being super selective in who's in there, like maybe you decide this is just for, you just have a group that you're inviting the marketers to, and they're only in that channel rather than a whole Slack community.
Cool. Erica, do you know, Kate wrote in, what software is the backbone of your portal? Is it completely homebrewed? You built it yourself, or are you using something to power that?
So it's powered by HiveBright. But the HiveBright.
Cool. And then we'll answer the metrics question, I think, towards the end. That'll be a great time to get to that. So let's move on. Let me get back to my slides here. So ongoing support. We surveyed our community of venture investors platform, and so you can see the breakdown of the data here. Like, what's the most common type of ask or support? You guys were mentioning some of the things. And so this is our breakdown from our customers and in community. This could look very different, and it's probably stage dependent as well, right? The asks are probably different for earlier stage companies versus companies that are, you call it in the growth phase, about to become public. But maybe just kind of a general question to kick us off. How are you guys aware of support needs, and how often are you getting them? And maybe related to that, what's the most common type you guys are seeing? Because I'm sure it's different since you guys are both different stages. Like how are you becoming aware, and how are you, and what's most common for you guys? I guess Erica, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was pretty accurate, honestly. Hiring and talent is always a top need for portfolio companies, and that's why I just hired a head of talent. I think fundraising support is also pretty obvious, and it happens every 1 year, usually, or a year and a half. I would say fundraising support is easier to do in-house because we just have a huge list of co-investors and investors downstream and upstream we can point to. Marketing, communications, and PR, I actually think would be the third for us, mainly because we mainly invest in B2C companies. I mean, a lot of our companies don't even have a PR firm, even at Series A or Series B they work with. So we actually use a PR firm that they then lean on, or I recommend PR firms to actually work with them, as well as help them myself, because I've done a lot of fundraising and launches in my time. But yeah, these are definitely the top four, I would say. But I think, having an advisor network is also very important. We have a bench of 25 advisors across different departments. So let's say you need help in engineering or product or design. Okay, we'll plug in the head of product design at Reddit to really help fill your gaps, or we'll plug in, the former president of Braze, who's an expert CMO and marketer. So we have a lot of people we can lean on when they, ask to do these things. And that's a main part of our jobs. I think as a platform head, you have to be a master networker, and your main job is keeping a CRM of just amazing talent, amazing people, experts, advisors to really help grow these functions up, especially if you're a team of one, which a lot of platform heads are.
Yeah. What about real quick, Erica, and then we'll switch over to Jess. Do you have a process? You mentioned hiring and talent. What is your process or system in place to help? Hey, I'm looking to hire X. Is it the CRM you've built? How are you managing that process and system?
In terms of hiring?
Yeah, or any of these items. But do you have a process in place? Hey, company comes in and says they need help with X. Are you going to route that to somebody else? Are you responsible for triaging that? Is everyone in the firm looking at that and they're saying, yep, I can help with that? What kind of process do you have in place?
I think it's everyone in the firm's responsibility, especially the deal teams, to help with any of the needs of the portfolio companies. However, I think we are now building out specific silos. This head of talent will have 2 people under her, just recruiting and making operational benches and building out maps of hires we have made and how well they're doing, and check in on the CEOs. Hey, how's this hire doing? Are they meeting expectations? So I think there'll evolve to be a much greater process. Currently, it's me going through Airtable. Whenever I meet someone talented, I'll have them fill out an Airtable form, goes into my CRM, which then goes out to my CEOs, right? So it very much is an automated game, and you have to when you manage so many different verticals, which you saw on the first slide. But in terms of, fundraising support, hiring, and marketing, I think hiring, fundraising, and customer introductions is not just the platform's person's job, it's the deal team's job. If you make that investment, you should know all of their metrics at any given time, all of their needs, and be helping support them. Marketing's a little different. It's a very unique skill set. An investment person is not going to know how to comment on an omni-channel marketing strategy and say, hey, the SEO AdWords channel is not driving as much ROI as a paid social, and this is why. They'll see the ROI difference, but they won't understand why. And so that's when you actually need these experts to plug in.
Yeah, awesome. Jess, what about you guys? How are you guys? Does this kind of map to the needs coming in from your founders? How are you managing those requests and any processes that you have in place?
Just from how do we become aware, it's everything from the investor update emails to whether they're texting us, WhatsApp, email, update calls. So it's really wide ranging. I have, again, Airtable, my favorite tool, but tracking it there based off what's the ask, who asked it, what's the company, the status. It's something that we need to get better about putting everything in there because they're constant. And so often people on the team, if they're getting one, they'll just address it themselves. They'll send it over to me. I would say totally agree with everything Erica said. As for the number one request, I think hiring and talent is something that we just recently launched a job board with our portfolio company Palette. And with that, we launched a talent network. So that's how we're providing scalable support. I think that talent is something that unless you're hiring a head of talent to specifically focus on it, it's something that I think it needs to have someone dedicated to it. It's such a big deal helping a portfolio company hire. And if you're just kind of half-heartedly doing it while you're focusing on so many other things, it's not going to be effective. And so the way I look at it is ultimately, once I could build out a team, having someone that could, if we want someone focusing on that, are they focusing on engineers? Are they focusing on marketing? Are they just focusing on C-suite, and kind of being super specific on the types of roles that we're going to support with? Or maybe we're going to say, okay, we're specifically going to focus on LatAm talent. But I think that's something that down the line, just making sure you're super curated with how you're supporting with that. And then for the fundraising support, that is the investors helping with that. So our partners typically who led the deal are then helping them with their, either because we're first check, they're helping them close their round, or when they're going out to raise their Series A, that's something that we are very hands-on with. And so from a platform and scalable support side, we have our co-investor directory with all of our co-investors, which is very specific. We're able to filter it based off of the type of company and the type of investors that we think make sense. And then we have different templates that the companies can use with their target fundraising lists for them to take advantage of their networks and their other investors to help. And we also have a fundraising guide. And so that's kind of how we've scaled it, though it's very bespoke and specific to the fundraising.
Yeah. Speaking of scalable support, and kind of some related questions we have coming in. We talked about introductions here quite a bit: network introductions, community building, ongoing education, kind of the three buckets of scaling a platform. How I guess, Eddie, let's start with like introductions, like tips for introductions. You mentioned some templates there, Jess. I guess we can circle back to you, but like, and then we had someone write in like, how do you balance that where like companies might want to get introduced to every single investor that you've co-invested with, and how do you balance that, and like how do you scale introductions? And we'll start there, and we can go and break down the other bullets next.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's a great question, because you do see that. And so how we use the co-investor directory internally for ourselves we see a list of all of our co-investors, what stage are they focusing on, what region, and et cetera. And then we're able to take that and filter it based off of the company. And then we will go look at that list and say, okay, here are the companies that or the investors that we actually think make sense for them to talk to. This is who we think will actually respond and get an email from them. And so we're not sending them the whole list and letting them go through it, just because, again, that's not scalable. We don't want to be sending introductions to co-investors or having them reach out when we know it's not relevant. And so we kind of use it on our end, the scalable directory, to then filter it and send them the list that way.
Yeah.
And then for the scaling the network introductions, I'm curious, Erica, your take on this, but we haven't built out a portal where founders can see, oh, here's the network, and here's a sign up here, click this link to sign up for a meeting. I think that a lot of those platforms were built, and there are tools like that, but you find that it's often unmanageable, because you'll have one person in your network, every single founder is trying to connect with them, and it's just becomes unmanageable. And so we try to curate those introductions and make them for where we think makes sense, rather than leaving it to the founders to just be able to reach out on their own.
I completely agree. Yeah. I mean, I think it has to be white glove, because a lot of these network connections are low in bandwidth, and so they can only take one meeting a month, and so you have to be very careful with their time. I don't think any network is transparent with our CEOs or our C-suite. I think it's on a case-by-case basis, where they tell me their needs, and then I go to our CRM and say, hey, this talent person, this talent here, that's good for this job. Hey, this advisor, that's good for this. So I think it's always going to be white glove. And I completely agree that if you make it completely transparent, it's just going to be chaos, and you're going to lose a lot of trust between your network, which is probably very world-class in a way. And so they don't have the time to be catering only to your portfolio, unless you're paying them a retainer or some type of cash equity comp to actually service your portfolio over time, which we have tried. I don't think it's the best method. And I think exactly what Jessica was saying is correct. In terms of summits and like community building, I would say that actually takes up a lot more time than, what is it, 20% here. We host two pretty massive summits each year, the Fast Growth Summit in New York and the Fast Growth Summit in London, which is coming up September 22nd. If anyone's in London, feel free to come. But essentially it's a half-day summit with just world-class CEOs of public companies and, you know, companies that are massive, and them telling stories, them doing panels, but it's very quick, like TEDx talk style. And then a lot of our summit is just reception and network, and it's an invite-only summit. So you apply to come to this summit, and then we let the most senior kind of leaders in. But it's live streamed to everyone else. So we'll get thousands of RSVPs, but you can still kind of tune in and see it. That is a massive brand play for us and a brand advantage. It sources us deals. We put our CEOs on stage, and it's gone them investments before. It allows our advisors to meet us in person and meet our companies in person. It allows us to increase our network of high society and like exclusive people that we wouldn't have access to begin with. Our speakers are just amazing and come from just a ton of different places. And so I think summits are one of the best things you can do. A lot of people are tired of virtual events now. Audience, you tell me if you're tired of virtual events. I love in-person events, like 1,000 times more. There's just something about meeting and interacting with someone in person. You get so much more out of it, in my perspective. And so we've poured probably 90% of our marketing budget into just events. We're hosting one tomorrow in New York City and Brooklyn, and it's going to be around 150 people talking about the VC perspective on the downturns in the market. And that was oversubscribed 6x of what it should have been, right? So I think there's a huge demand for meeting in person now more than ever. And we're starting to invest a lot of time in it and pour our network into it. And they see that as an advantage, and therefore they help us more because we're inviting them to really cool events.
Awesome. Jeff, how about you mentioned events is a big piece of what you've done over the last couple of years. And I think I was talking to someone at K50, and you guys recently did a CEO summit just for your founders in maybe Bogota or somewhere in Colombia. Like, what have you seen work well? And what kind of impactful events have you seen resonate with the portfolio?
Yeah, we love events like Erica. And it's definitely, I would say too, more than 20% of time is spent there. I kind of bucketed into 4 different categories. One is the one-on-one founder networking opportunities. So once a quarter, we have opportunities for founders to sign up to talk one-on-one with another founder. The second type of events we do are more tactical, where all of our companies, regardless of what they're building, go through similar challenges. And so once a quarter, we'll have different tactical events. So we've had Emily Hayward, who's the founder of Red Antler branding agency, come and give a talk on building a brand. We've had Christine Hall, a TechCrunch journalist, come give a talk on how to write the most successful press release and pitch to journalists. And those are super well received. Again, we open it up to the founders and their teams. The founders are the gatekeepers, so they'll send it over to their teams. If it's accessible, we'll send it over to people who weren't able to make it as a recording. So similar to this type of event where it's very tactical and learning focused. And then we have a Seed to Unicorn series where we're bringing unicorn founders to talk to our portfolio in a really intimate setting. Those are all virtual and super great. We don't have to spend any budget on it, and they're scalable because they could be recorded. They're put into our event directory. Then the 4th type are the in-person events, which the way that I look at it is, why do we get people together in person? And it's really to network, to engage, and to meet other people on that human level. And so we'll do small scale founder dinners, and then we do once or twice a year a bigger event. And so, as you mentioned, earlier this year, we did an event in Bogota, Colombia, where we gathered the K50 founders, other co-investors in our network and partners. And we had a big event on Friday night, a dinner and a cocktail party. And then the next day we went to a music festival in Bogota called the Stereo Picnic, which was kind of like the Coachella of LATAM, which was by far the best thing I've gotten to do since my time at K50. But it was just a really fun, unique way to get founders together and for them to actually build friendships in a really unique environment. And so kind of thinking outside of the box of how are we actually building community and having founders actually become friends in events like that.
So we touched on this a little bit. So someone wrote in this question, like what's in-person events, not virtual. Like what's the balance? Is there an ideal balance of content, keynotes, presentations versus time purely spent on networking, getting to know one another? Like, do you think about budgeting it that way? Like, what have you guys seen work well? I guess, Jess, we'll start with you since we were just talking about it.
Mm-hmm. So speaking to the Bogota event, we had one session before we opened it up to people outside of the K50 founders. So we got all the K50 founders together and we had someone facilitate a session to get all the founders connecting. But we didn't have any content there. The goal really was to celebrate all the hard work over the last year and a half. We were all behind a computer screen with COVID. Though we have done other smaller scale events where we've had a small LP event where we invited LP and founders together last November, and we did panels with some of our portfolio companies in addition to a cocktail party and a dinner. And so that had more of a balance. But I think it really depends on the audience and who you're inviting and really the goal of the event. If the goal is to build community, I think that having it be more social and interactive. If the goal is for fundraising, if you're inviting your LPs, maybe you want to have a panel to learn and to highlight, to teach them and to highlight your portfolio companies. So I really think it depends on the goal of the event. And I think that's really the first step before going into planning, because there's obviously many different ways you can host an in-person event, and it's really thinking through your audience and the goal.
Yeah, awesome. Erica, anything to add there?
No, I think that hits it on the nail. I mean, I think the most impactful event for our portfolio companies is just our CEO summit that we do every year. Similarly, it's just a great way to get our CEOs together and share insights, and it's as much educational as a bonding moment for them. Ours was in Miami around F1, very on brand for us, left lane, fast cars. We did F1. And it was amazing to see all of our international CEOs actually bond together. I think that made them much stronger, and the community became a lot stronger over time as well for that, but nothing more to add on that.
Yeah. Plus one, I find that for me as a founder, I love going to the CEO summit every year. It's where I get the most value and probably the most connections too. So, let's, we got a couple minutes left. We got some great questions coming in. So we have a slide here. I'm curious, like, are you guys, we talked about this a little bit, but are you keeping track, you're getting different asks from founders, text, Slack, WhatsApp, email. Are you putting those all in a central place, or are you just triaging those where they come in and maybe spend like 10 seconds and we'll move on, but just kind of quickly, how are you managing this? Or not?
Or not.
I think, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think, how do you keep track of measuring portfolio support needs? There's so many different ways, right? Airtable is one of them. I think our NPS survey does a really good job at getting feedback, and that's something that we do obviously yearly, and probably going to move it to quarterly soon. In terms of, how do we keep track of hiring and jobs? Right now we use Getro. But I think once this head of talent starts August 1st, next week, she is going to retransfer and reform our whole system, bringing a very recruiting mentality where she'll probably have her own CRM and everything else. I mean, that's our job to keep track of it.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's more, I just do it on an ad hoc basis and keep notes on every single one of our companies.
Yep.
I think other than that though, like Visible VC, it's a relationship hub, right? So like, there's so many different things you can do. We use IQ-EQ to track all of the KPIs for our companies, and there's many of them like Quaster and Carta and everything else. But I think that gives us one dashboard to look at all of their metrics and OKRs in one place. We actually have our companies update us monthly, which is pretty abnormal on all of their metrics. So I have visibility in how everyone's doing. So if I see companies in the red, I reach out to them. So that's a kind of like big brother eye thing, but it's also a, hey, I see you're not doing well. Let me help you. So it's very much useful.
Yeah, awesome. Jess, anything else that you would add here?
I would just add, for people thinking about this, it's pick something and just dedicate yourself to it. Because I think as Erica said, it's your job. And so you're constantly getting asked and requests and fulfilling it. And so like you might write something down on a notepad and something in Affinity and something in Airtable, and just like, if you're starting out, or just pick one and run with it and get your team to buy into it. Yeah, and for us, that's Affinity and Airtable.
Affinity is great, by the way. Affinity is a great out of the box system. Salesforce is very complicated. You'll have to pour a ton of money. It's more scalable than Affinity, but it's definitely going to cost you a lot more pain and money.
Yeah.
So I love Affinity.
and Zapier is an amazing tool also to connect the dots, and as a platform team of one to really automate a lot of different processes.
Yeah. Two more slides, and we'll see if we have any time left for Q&A. Talking about we talked about a little bit about bridging the gap and how you guys are involved in the investment process. If I am how do I get basically buy-in from the investment team, right? And engage into the platform? What have you seen work well? Any tips or tricks or things to avoid for either first-time GPs that might be on this, or maybe a platform team of one that's trying to get more buy-in from the partners? Like, what have you seen work well? And then we'll wrap up here. But I guess we'll start with you, Erica.
I think how you get buy-in is show them the actual impact that comes out of having a platform. I think it's hard to get partner or investor buy-in because their main job and their sole job is investing. But as soon as you have your CEO speak on behalf for the platform or what you're doing and showing the actual impact, that's how you can get a bigger budget. That's how you can get bigger buy-in. That's how you can grow your team. And that's how I'm able to grow my operations team, right? I was the first operational hire at Left Lane. Now we're a team of 5, soon we'll be a team of 10, right? So like, I think one of it is painting the grander vision, which is, would you like us to actually, and again, this depends on the size of your firm. Like if we were 100 million in AUM, we would not have this big of an operation team. And like, since we are a lead investor, we need to, and that's part of big selling proposition to our LPs is we do have this in-house capability team that can then, transform our businesses to the next level. So I do think it has to do a lot with the size, but setting KPIs is super important along the way, whether that's how many talent hires you've made for your companies, whether that's, there's a lot of BS metrics that I would not recommend showing, which is like the amount of revenue increase of your companies that cannot be attributed back to you solely. But there's a good amount of ways.
Yeah, that's actually someone wrote that question, and so maybe we'll just get to it right now, which is like which metrics. So you mentioned there's some BS ones. Like, how do you measure true success of the platform?
I think a lot of it is it's harder if you have a Slack channel or something that's not an actual platform. Our platform has a Google Analytics interface, so it shows how many messages were on the platform. It shows how used it is and the engagement metrics. It shows are your super users. There's actually a point system with if a user or let's say a CEO attends an event and comments on a post and posts a post, he gets a certain number of points. And so there's a point system throughout our backend, which helps us show who the engaged CEOs are and who aren't engaged, and then get them more engaged. And then in terms of other metrics, I would say the most popular are just pure case studies on how you've actually helped the business, which is like, okay, we've increased their Facebook and Instagram paid social ROI by X amount by working with them for a 3-month period of time. So it really is a case by case study basis, or we made X amount of customer intros to them, which led to this revenue increase versus, they just increased the revenue and we're solely attributed to that. So I do think it's more case by case as well. And I also think it's, it shows with their next fundraise, especially if you're the lead investor.
Yeah, awesome. Just anything to add there?
Yeah, I would say a lot of getting the partner and investment team bought in is like what I like to do is if I'm on a founder call and someone's telling me, oh, wow, this is incredible. no other funds do this. Like I'll literally type the quote that they say to me and send it to our team, or the feedback that I'm getting, I share, because a lot of it is qualitative, and it's just, it's really hard to measure community and the success of that. And so sharing the feedback that we're getting. Also, we had 15 of our founders invest in our last fund. And so I think that just speaks to the measures of the support that we're doing and the value that they see from us. We have founders who are introducing us to LPs. We have a lot of our deal flow is coming from our founders introducing us to other founders. And so it is that flywheel effect that we were talking about earlier, and how the platform support that they're getting is allowing us to meet new investors, meet new founders. And I track all of the engagement also across the fund. Ours isn't as automated, but I'm measuring what companies are responding to our events, who are they attending, who's attending. We have 100% engagement actually across our current fund. And so that to us is success. It's showing us that we're hosting the right types of events. And there's more, but I know we're almost out of time.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, let's wrap with advice for first-time fund managers, first-time platform. Like any kind of parting advice or wisdom. I know it's so hard because we talked about a lot today, but like one or two things as we wrap up, because I know I want to be respectful of everyone's time and your guys' time. And then if anyone wrote in a question, by the way, we have that. So we'll get back to you in email with a question.
I'm trying to type some answers to questions now as we speak.
Yeah, awesome. But just any final parting thoughts for people who might be tackling this for the first time?
Yes, just be super specific in the goals. The downfall, as I said, is trying to do too much. And so really figure out what is the value add going to be? What are you going to start with? And go from there, hire around those specific those goals. And for the first 6 months, I like that question. Talk to as many other heads of platform or people in the role as possible. It is such a welcoming and giving community, and you'll learn so much from your peers. And then talk to as many founders who will get on the phone with you as possible and hear from them what they want and what they need, and build from there. Yeah,
awesome. Erica, any last thoughts?
I would say go back. If you're a partner, if you're a platform head, if you're in VC, have a team meeting around what you want your edge and differentiation to be as a firm. And once you kind of figure that out as a unit, you can then build something that's way more impactful than straddling a million things. Start with one thing, make it really good, make it quality, and then move on to the next. But it really does start with, what do we want to be known for? What's going to make us win more deals as a firm, and where are our strengths right now?
Yeah, awesome. Some resources we'll send this deck out for everyone to check out because we're gonna get to chat about these. So check these out. Erica, Jess, thanks so much for your time. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see everyone soon.
Thanks.
Oh, should I give my email if people have questions?
Oh yeah, sure.
Here, if anyone has questions, I know maybe some people already logged off. I'll put it in the chat. Feel free to email.
Awesome. There it is. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. All right. See everyone soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Later.